I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today we're having one of our most anticipated first drives of 2019, as it is our first opportunity to take the new BMW G20 3 Series out on local roads here in Australia. We're in the beautiful Victorian High Country today, where we're going to have the chance to drive both of the initial available 3 Series models that Australians can buy. Initially, there's a 320D, a 4-cylinder diesel, and the 330i, which is the most popular model down under, which is a 4-cylinder turbo petrol these days. We're going to be driving both of them, but we're also going to be checking out this new 3 Series, which is really the quintessential BMW. Although this brand now runs at about 60% SUV volume here in Australia, the 3 Series is still really the classic BMW, isn't it? Let me know down in the comments what you reckon of the look of the new G20 generation. Do you like it? How about this new front apron, which is quite a bit more dramatic than the outgoing F30 series of this car? Personally, I like it. This silver one that I've got here, this is a luxury line, so that plays more into my tastes, but the M Sport package is standard, and the blue car that you'll see in the B-roll throughout this video, that is an M Sport in the Halo Portimao blue color. What do you prefer? Let me know. So what we're going to do in this video is our usual mix. We're going to jump into the front, check out the cabin. How luxurious is it? How much tech is there? We're going to see how much room there is in the back, how practical is the 3 Series and in the boot, and then we're going to take it out onto the road, onto the beautiful driving roads around here to see just how this thing stacks up. Is this still the sporty option in the small luxury sedan segment? Although you really could say that much of the design of the new 3 Series, outside and in, is evolutionary rather than revolutionary, that's just the way that BMW likes to do things. And here in the cabin, although much of it is new and the technology has received a significant boost, if you've already owned a 3 Series or really any recent Beamer, you'll feel right at home because it all looks and feels very similar to the BMWs of the last few years, and that's a good thing because this company makes some of the easiest to use, simple, intuitive cabins in the segment. There's none of the glitz and glamour of the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Instead, what you get is a pared back, elegant interior, which for my tastes, I prefer the way BMW and Audi do things. Now, what you get is a really nice, high quality feeling cab. There's this nice leather steering wheel, standard leather seats in the luxury line. However, the M Sport 320D actually has a mix of fabric and Alcantara, something that subscribers know that I love, although everything else uses this quite nice Vanasca grade leather, as BMW calls it. Not the most luxurious I've ever felt, but certainly far from the worst. You can get stuff like faux leather up here on the dashboard, although this car doesn't have it. What you do get though is heaps of tech. There's a 10.25-inch screen up here in the center that now runs iDrive 7, the latest operating system. There's a digital display for the driver on every single 3 Series. That's pretty cool. You can display kind of a map in front of you, although it's nowhere near as immersive as the Audi virtual cockpit. However, it's all really controlled by a rotary dial as always, but there's now touch capability up here on the dashboard as well. I really congratulate BMW on offering lots of interior color choices, not just this bland and boring black, although that's all that's in the country right now. Later on, you'll be able to get cognac brown, you'll be able to get sand, you'll be able to get lots of different colors of leather and also different trims. So we've got the black fine line wood in here, but you can get aluminium. You can really customize this car so that it matches your taste. Plus, the driving position is now better because finally you can get the steering wheel low enough in a 3 Series, so that's cool. As for practicality, it's good. You have a big tray ahead of the shifter. Wireless charging is actually standard on the 3 Series now. Decent tray in between the seats with a USB-C port. Really happy to see that, so you can charge your modern smartphone really quickly here in the new 3 Series, and decent sized door bins as well. One of the main problems with the outgoing 3 Series was a problem with space, especially here in the second row. Lots of people want to have this car, as a commuter or as a second car for the family, so you do need to have enough space, I reckon, for 4 adults in a BMW 3 Series. And now you do, because what BMW have done is they've made the whole car a bit wider. They've made it 7.5 centimeters longer, and that translates to usable space here in the second row. You can see that for me at 6 foot, I've got another inch of headroom or so. I've actually got good leg room now Toe room is just okay, but shoulder room's a little better. You've got amenities back here like aircon vents, 2 USB-C ports here in the back, and actually a separate climate zone as well. The actual base is nice and inclined, the seat back is a little bit reclined, and you get cup holders and stuff like that. So now the back seat of a 3 Series isn't just an afterthought. You could actually travel back here in relative comfort. But if you want even more space, there will be a station wagon version of the 3 Series. It is coming to Australia later on in 2019, and you know that that's what I'm going to be really looking forward to. Around the back of the new 3 Series, you can see a bunch of the new design elements they've integrated into the tail end. There's these 3D effect lights, there's the new reflectors down the bottom with some chrome trim here on the luxury line. Too overdone or just right? What do you reckon? Either way, the tailgate and the boot space, whoa, that's electric. Okay, do we really need electric tailgates on cars this size? I don't know. But the boot space is identical to the outgoing shape at 480 litres. That's very class competitive as well, and it's good shape and size. Goes straight through, very square, not a massive lip to load heavy suitcases over, and you get 2 netted sections on either side to prevent delicate items from rolling around. As you can see, you now no longer even have to shut a small boot. All you have to do is press a button. So what are we dealing with here in terms of driving the new BMW 3 Series? Well, you know, it's pretty important because although BMW now have, you know, a very full range with a lot of different cars and specific sports cars like the 2 Series and 4 Series and Z4, a lot of people still think of the BMW 3 Series when they imagine a quintessential BMW. So, you know, this is a sports sedan. It needs to be really good to drive on a back road while also being comfortable and practical and usable every day as a commuter. Much more so than, you know, a Mercedes C-Class or an Audi A4 has to be sporty. For those cars, although they are good to drive, they just don't carry that same reputation of the 3 Series as a driver's car. So, you know, one thing I'm looking for here is seeing whether or not the new generation, the G20, manages to maintain the sort of split personality the 3 Series does so well. The good news is that on first impressions in these alpine roads here in Victoria, the new 3 Series stands up really nicely, and I think better than the outgoing shape. A big problem I had with the previous car was that the steering was certainly not the last word in feel or feedback or precision even. It was too light and it didn't feel that connected to the front wheels, and it just never appealed to me. Thankfully, the new car fixes that really nicely. The tiller is super feelsome. There's good feedback from the front wheels, and although, you know, it's not an old school hydraulic power steering setup from like an E46 3 Series, those days are gone, it does a really nice job, and this car is really fun to steer. I think the Jaguar XE might still have a slightly superior steering rack, but the 3 Series has very much closed that gap, and that was where Jag were able to get a sizable advantage over the previous 3 Series, in my opinion, was in the steering department. So that's really good. The handling of the new 3 Series is also super nice. It's a tiny bit lighter than the outgoing car, but what's been retained is that perfect 50-50 weight balance, and you just feel that in every corner. You can balance it on the throttle really nicely. The stability control system isn't too intrusive, so you are able to throttle steer the car. You know, the weight moves around predictably and in a balanced way on the road, and the whole thing is just a joy to put down a B road. It's really lovely to drive. It is a proper sports sedan. And this is just the 330i I'm driving now. You know, the future M340i and the M3 that, you know, comes along after that, they should be really, really good athletic performance cars. So I mentioned that I'm in the 330i. Let's have a chat about the engines. Initially, Australians can choose between two. There is the 140 kilowatt, 400 Newton meter 320D 2-litre turbo diesel, and there's this one that I'm driving, the 330i. It's the current volume seller in the outgoing shape, and that'll probably remain the case in the new car. This is a great engine. 2-litre turbo 4. Yeah, 330i used to be 3-litre inline 6. It doesn't anymore. Let's move on. and it makes 190 kilowatts of power and 400 newton meters of torque, same torque as the diesel. And in fact, the torquey pulling characteristics of this car feel diesel-like. It has such a massive spread of torque across such a dramatic breadth of the rev range that it just pulls and pulls. The difference with the diesel though is that this thing also has top end and it's just an incredibly yeah, see what I was saying about being able to balance it on the throttle. The 330i is just a brilliant powertrain. You know, you can rev it out, you can rely on torque. The 8-speed torque converter auto is a brilliant thing. Third gear in particular is so flexible. It goes from like 40 k's an hour to 120. So if you were super lazy, you could just ride the torque all day. But otherwise, you could shift it around with the standard paddles. It is a really nice dynamic experience, this car. It actually sounds pretty good in 330i form as well. All of the cars have a pretty fruity exhaust, even in luxury line. I'm actually driving the luxury line right now. Throw it into a corner here. I've got a nice sweeping bend. It sits pretty flat. I do have the dampers in sport right now. The 330i has adaptive M suspension as standard, so you got comfort or sport on the dampers. Comfort's a little bit roly-poly, but nice and compliant in town. Out on the back roads here, sport works better for the damping, keeps the car pretty flat. And at speed, there's no problem with ride quality anyway. There's so much torque that in second and third gear, full throttle applications in the 330i have your traction control light flashing. It's actually quite entertaining. And yeah, the 330i delivers like 8 litres per 100 k's of consumption in touring, as I found today. Really economical. It's pretty cool. It's really quiet as well. They've got a new way of insulating the front windscreen from sound. It's got several layers with a sort of laminate in between them that soaks up quite a bit of noise. There's a bit of wind whistle over the mirrors, but nothing too bad. Easy to see out of. It's got a really good driving position, better driving position than the old car, because I feel like you sit a bit lower. The entire car is lower to the ground, but the steering wheel comes down a bit further, which works pretty well for me. So yeah, there will be a 6-cylinder in the M340i later this year. There's also going to be a petrol electric plug-in hybrid, the 330e, that's coming to Australia. There'll be a 135 kilowatt 320i entry-level engine later on as well. And yeah, an M3 at some point too. Safety-wise, the new 3 Series isn't bad. However, I think it could do more. So it has a standard safety package on the 320D called Driving Assistant. That has lane departure warning with some steering intervention. It has forward collision warning with some braking intervention, and that's really troubling to me, is that even on a BMW that costs in the upper $60,000 range, it does not have proper AEB as standard. ANCAP says it's AEB because it brakes the car partially, just not to a stop, but in my opinion, in 2019, AEB needs to be able to grab the brakes and bring the car to a complete stop if you're incapacitated or unable to do so. You do get that on Driving Assistant Plus, which is standard on the 330i or optional on the 320D, and you get a bunch of other stuff with that. You get adaptive cruise control with stop and go, you get full lane keep assist and stage 2 autonomy, lets you take your hands off the steering wheel for 25 seconds if you're on a clearly marked road like on the highway. That's all really good. It's nice that it's standard on the 330i. The issue is that all that stuff is standard on Mazda 6. Sure, the lane keep assist isn't anywhere near as sophisticated, but you know, full AEB, stop and go adaptive cruise. This is all technologies that's available at a lower price point, and BMW should really be leading the way. And it's an aberration because in other ways, you know, this 3 Series is really good value and has lots of stuff in it. We need to see all of the safety technology standard from the base model 3 Series, which is still a fairly premium car. So those are my first impressions of the new G20 BMW 3 Series. It's great to see a really comprehensive generational change for the 3 Series it remains one of my favorite sports sedans. And of course, now that I have to drive so many SUVs, because that's what 3/5 of people are buying when they go out to purchase a new car, it is cool to get back into a slinky, sporty little sedan and remember just how good these things are to drive. And it is good to drive because BMW have addressed some of my main concerns with the outgoing shape, especially with the way this thing feels to steer. All the rest of the car is still pretty good. Rides well, the engines are strong, it's got a nice cabin, great driving position. I like it, but let me know what you think down in the comments, your opinions on the new BMW 3 Series. What do you reckon of this car? And of course, if you haven't subscribed to Chasing Cars, please do so below the video to make sure you get our detailed Australian new car reviews every single week. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.